Welcome back, guys. So today we're going to be implementing this app. It's a simple app which is built on room database. So as you can see from here, we'll have a lazy list which we'll design with Jetpack Compose, which we have been designing with, and it's kind of a continuation from our old app, the video that we've done before on navigation. So if you have not seen that video, I'll urge you to go and look it up. And you can also download the source code for this project from there so that you can continue from where we stopped. So initially we just had the top app bar here with some menus, and we also have the bottom navigation with the menus which were responsive from the old implementation. But today, I'm going to show you how you can actually achieve something like this using room database. So this is a floating action button which you can use to add a new user, like let's say Kennedy. So Kennedy is our new user, and let's say his last name is F, and Kennedy was born in what year? Let's say Kennedy was born long ago, before all of us. So Kennedy was born on this day on April in 1979, and Kennedy is a male. So, and Kennedy's phone number started from +01. So just add some numbers and even some letters as well. So Kennedy's email is @mail.com. Okay, so I'm just making this up, and Kennedy is from Washington. Kennedy lives in Washington, right? So then you see now we have Kennedy here, Kennedy F, and also here once you click on Kennedy's profile, it's going to take us to this details page, which shows all those details that we've entered for Kennedy, and this serious looking professor's picture which I added globally for all the users. So now right here you can actually delete someone, like you can click on this bin button and it will delete that particular user, right? The user is gone. And also we can also sort our users by their first name or their last name in alphabetical order, that's in ascending order, using the English A to Z alphabet, or by their gender as well. So these are the things we're going to be implementing on this project. I urge you to download the source code if you haven't started from the other videos that we've done. If you haven't gotten to that last stage, then you can download the source code and code along, because I think that's the best way you can actually master this coding thing. So it's not all about just watching the videos and being entertained. I call it being entertained because you might think you understand it, but by the time you want to do it on your own, you might be having issues. But if you code along, you can also follow the steps correctly, and also it will internalize the concept for you. So just make sure you learn something from this. So first of all, we are going to be following the clean architecture according to Google recommendation, which is what I've tried to demonstrate in this diagram here. We have the UI layer, the domain layer, the data layer, right? So, and the data layer is where we will find our own database, which is our local data source. So we can also include a remote data source, but that's not our focus on this video. In this local data source, you have things like the model and entities, you have the DAO. So, and once we go a step up, we'll have the repository, which is in the domain layer, and this is also optional according to the Google recommendation for implementation. Then this is our UI layer, which is going to be the presentation layer, where we have our compose files, the ViewModel, the live data, and the state. So all these are what we're going to be implementing, so that we are going to sectionalize this app like this to adhere to separation of constraints. And also we're going to be abstracting all these things, because according to the recommendation, the data layer should not know anything about these, the UI layer. So we're going to abstract them in layers. So that said, we're going to be visiting this diagram as we go along. The first thing I want us to do is to clean up this a bit. So the three layers that we've just demonstrated in this project. So now I'm going to create a package, a new package here, which is going to be called our data package, right? And also we'll create another one called the domain. That's the domain layer, right? So after that, we'll have so here we're going to create another package called the presentation, right? So that's the three main layers, which is the data, domain, and the presentation layer. So in this presentation, we're going to have, I noticed something. If you don't, there's a weird way this thing names our packages. So if I move this component, for example, should be part of our presentation package, but if I move it directly, it's going to give us presentation.component, which I don't want. So what I will do is, first of all, I will move the class to the presentation package, right? So if I move that class, okay, so now it's moved to the presentation package right now. Yeah, if I move this now to this place, it's not going to give that weird name. I believe so, yes. So now this I've achieved. I don't want this to give us presentation.component. If I've moved the package directly, that's what it's give. I believe someone must have experienced something like this before. So now I will move this to this place as well, because the screens are part of the presentation layer, right? So now we'll have the component and the screen. So I'll just quickly move this back to this place so that everything will be in sync. Yes. So now we have our presentation done. Our navigation, we're not tampering with this yet. This will be the way it is on the root package. So now we're going to have three different packages nested in this data package, which is going to be the root package. So, and they are going to be local package and the model package and the repository package as well. So, but if I create a package right away, it's going to give me data dot whatever, and I don't like it. So what I'm going to do first of all is that I'm going to create a class which I will call our user database class. So let's create that straight away. This is going to be an abstract class. Do we have abstracts here? No. So let's create that and rename that later. So we'll add this to Git. So remember, abstract is going to be an abstract class because we don't want, this is where we start our separation of concern. We don't want every other layers to know what is in this our database class. So that's why we're abstracting it. So now if I create my package, it's going to be safe where I want it to be. I'll call this local. So you see it's now the way I want it. So now I'll create the other remaining packages. This is going to be our model package, and this is going to be our repository package. Okay, so that's all the packages done, and I'll move this to the local. That's where it belongs. I'll refactor this. Now we have all our packages set. Let's start with the implementation of our database. We started with some dependencies in the past, which I know if you have the source code, you're supposed to have those dependencies in place, so you wouldn't have issues moving forward. But let's be sure that we'll have everything. So let's go quickly to our Gradle. So all the plugins, I believe all the plugins are here. So we have not included the room plugin yet. So I'm going to do that, and that is ID. I'm going to copy that and I'll paste it here. So we don't have any dependency for room here, so I'll paste that here. So after that, I will paste that schema here. I hope you're following along with me. So no, this is on a new line. Don't mind the error, we're going to take care of that soon and paste this here. Okay, so the next one is on our top Gradle. Yeah, come down here, paste that. So I guess that's everything we need now. So let's sync and see if that everything will be fine and we're good to go. So let's close all that down. Yes, so now for more space, let me close this down and make this full screen for now. So right now we have to annotate our database with database annotation. It's giving us error because we need to specify the entities. You say no value passed for version. Yeah, so now we'll call entities, and our entity is going to be user entity, which we have not created yet. So we'll call our user entity, and it's a class. So, and our version is going to be, let's put this on a new line to make it look cleaner. Then, so the next one is the version, which is 1, because we only have one table, one entity in this project. So after that, let's quickly go back to our local package and also create another class, which is going to be an interface class, which is our DAO, our data access object. So our data access object is going to be an interface, and we'll call this user DAO. So add this to Git as well. So in this user DAO, we're going to annotate it with DAO as well, at DAO. Okay, so all these are from imports from the room database. So now that we've created this, we can go back to our database. First of all, we need to inherit from the room database from here. So room database, yes. So now, and also we have not created this yet, so that's why the error. Let's create call our DAO here, which is going to be an abstract function, and we'll call our user DAO, and it's going to inherit from our user DAO, right? So this, our database is now done, only that we have not, this is a function, not bracket, yeah. So we need to create this entity class, which is part of our model class. So it's going to be a data class, and we'll call this user entity, right? So add this to Git as well. Then this is going to be where we'll put our parameters, and we need to also annotate this with entity at entity. So our table name here, we can call it user. So call it users, that's the name of our table, and here we're going to add some parameters. That's why it's giving that error. So let's come back here and import this to clear this error from this side. Yeah, so now our database setup is done. So let's close this down because we won't be needing it for now, right? So now we still need to put our queries here. So here we're going to start noting the parameters that we need our users. That's the detail we want from them. Firstly, we need to identify each user with an ID, and that ID will tell Room to make it a unique ID. So Room is going to generate this ID automatically for us, so that we don't have conflict with our data, with processing our data along the line. So right here we're going to this ID is going to be an int. So, and we need to, let's initialize that to 0 from this start. Then we need to annotate this with the primary key so that room will know that this is a unique key. So, and also want it to auto generate the key for us. After that, we need the user to give us their first name, and this first name is going to be a string, and we'll make it nullable in case they entered an empty, they submitted an empty form without the first name, so that our app will not crash. All right. So, and the last name is also a string, and that string is also nullable. Then also we need their date of birth, which is the DOB, called the DOB, and it's going to be a long. And after that, we need their gender, and their gender is also a string. And after gender, we need their phone number, and their phone number will be a string as well. Then another one is their email address, which is also a string. And as well, after that, we need their home address, which is also a string. So that is our data model done. With that, we can now go to our DAO to determine how do we query this data from our database. What are the conditions? How do we select one user from the rest? How do we delete? How do we arrange the data to display on our UI? So this is where we're going to set those conditions using SQL through Room. So Room is abstracting the SQL engine, which is what we are querying our data with under the hood. So let's quickly set up some of the queries that will require in querying our database. Okay, so first of all, let's start with inserting a user first, because we can't query data that doesn't exist. So first of all, we start with a suspend function, and this suspend function is so that this query can run on a different thread, so that it doesn't interfere with our main thread and cause some race conditions. So right here, we'll call this insert user function, and this is going to take the user parameter, and it's from our user entity. So, and this is going to be a long, right? So, and that said, we need to annotate this with insert. You can also use upsert, which is the kind of it does the same thing with insert, but insert is just inserting a new user. So, but sometimes you insert a user with the same name. What happens? So we need to tell Room what to do. But if you use upsert, it's going to replace whatever that is existing, like updating it. So, but we use on conflict strategy to achieve that here. Let's import insert first of all. So we'll import insert. So on conflict, so if there is an existing data, what do? We tell it to, on conflict strategy, we use replace, so that it replace any existing data there with a new one. Okay, so that's the first query. Now we have a user. What do we do next? Let's arrange our users in ascending order by their first name, and we'll start another suspend function, which is going to be, let's get user sorted by their first name. It's a long one. Get user sorted by first name, right? So that's a very long name. So there will be no parameter because we're sorting out the whole list, and it's going to be a list of all our users. So it's going to be a list, and the type is going to be our user entity, which you have. That's our data that we have modeled already. So with that, we need to annotate this as well. So we're going to annotate this with query, because we're going to write some SQL query here, and that is going to be select. We'll say, oh, it's going to be string. So we'll say select all from users, which is our data, our table name, order by. So we are going to order that by the first name. So first name, and it should be in ascending order according to the English alphabet A to Z. So that's, let's copy this again so that I don't bore you with. So we'll copy this and we'll paste it, because we are going to be, from our demonstration, let's show that. So from our demonstration here, we sort the user by first name, by last name, and by gender. So we're going to duplicate this into 3 places. So this is going to be by last name, right? So we'll change this as well, last name, right? And this is going to be gender. So, and this is going to be by gender, right? So all the error has gone. So the next thing we need to do is to get a particular user. When they click on a user, like here, as you can see, it takes us to the user's details. So we want to query that to tell our database this is what action we want. So here is going to be a suspend function, and that will be get user by ID, because each user has the unique ID that was specified during when we're creating our entity class, right? So get user by ID, and it's going to have a parameter which is called the user ID, and that's is going to be an int, because it's just one user we want to get, and that is also inherit from our user entity, which could be nullable in case the user doesn't exist during our search. Okay, so then we'll say query, we'll annotate this by query as well, right? So, and this is going to be select, we'll say select all again from users, which is our table, and where, so the condition is where ID, which is the user ID. So what is the user's ID? So where ID is equal to user ID, which was specified under here, right? So with that, what we are telling Room to do is that once a user is clicked, so to pass this data to the next screen, we need the ID. So what is this ID? Because we have a unique ID. So like John Affleck, for instance, once John Affleck is clicked, we query this command here is going to query the database and find John Affleck's detail, which we are going to display here, right? So that's done. Then also, in case we don't want a user, maybe we want to fire the user, right? So what do we say happens now? So now this is not going to be query, we're going to just delete that user. Maybe the user left the company or the group, kind of. So, and it's going to be delete user, and that's going to be user, which and is from our user entity. Okay, so that's all for the delete function. So I said delete here, this is delete user. So now this is our data access object has been completed. Let me close this down. So now our data access object have been completed, so we'll have everything we need to query and process our data accordingly. So let's close this down quietly and this as well. I need so that we can have a clean tab here. This is done. So now that we've created the model, we've created the database and the DAO, we'll need to create the repository, which is going to be we'll call this user repo implementation, right? So implementation, right? So we call it this. We need to add that to Git as well. So, but before we implement this, we're going to be using pure Kotlin classes for our business logic, because we're implementing the domain layer in this application. And because of that, we'll have some classes like the user mapper, which we will need in our repository implementation. And also we'll have another repository in our domain layer, which we are going to implement first of all, so that we can be able to reach it from our implementation, repository implementation. So let's go ahead and create these other ones in our domain. So first of all, in our domain, let's start with, we'll have a domain user, which is going to be the data model, the model in the domain layer, which we are going to use to query some of our data. Because why we're using this implementation is that, like I said earlier, if we have something like password and we don't want to share that with other part of our app, like the UI layer, we can create another data model class in our domain layer to abstract that, so that we can select the data that we want to expose to our UI. So let's create that now and continue. So first of all, we're going to create a domain user. So this domain user here, I'll close that, is going to be another data class, which we'll call our domain user, right? So the domain user, add this to Git. So it's going to have some parameters just similar to the entity class, but we're going to call the ID instead of annotating this with the primary key. This is just going to be an ID of int, and we'll initialize that to 0. And as well, we're going to have the first name of the user here, and it's going to be another string, and it's going to be nullable as well, and our var, which is our last name, and is also going to be a string and of nullable type. And then we have a var dob, date of birth, which is also still a long. So var, someone is walking on my backyard, I'm sorry for that sound. Then the next one is the gender, which is going to be a string, and another one is the phone number, and all these are strings, right? Then email, which is also a string. Then var address. I hope they won't be long, guys, I'm sorry for this distraction. So, and this is a string. So this is our domain user, all the parameters we need, the variables or parameters, whichever one you prefer or we need for our domain user. So after that, now that we've created these, we'll go ahead and create the user mapper, which is going to map the entity class with the domain user for any disparity. In this our project, there is no disparity, but for larger project, there might be some things you don't want to expose to certain levels of your application. So that is why you need a mapper. So we'll create the mapper and the mapper class here. So we call the user mapper, and yes, add that to Git. Should I? Don't ask again, keep adding. Okay, so now we're going to map from entity class to the domain user. So and it's going to be a function. We'll call that map from entity. And the parameter is going to be entity from our user entity, and it's going to inherit from the domain user, right? So here in the body of our function, we're going to return the domain user. So on the domain user, the ID, which is an int, is going to be mapped to the entity ID, right? Okay, so that's all we're doing here, guys. No big deal. So, and this is going to be entity dot first name as well. So the last name, and this is going to be entity dot last name. DOB, our DOB is going to be entity.dob as well. Then gender, the same thing, dot entity dot gender, right? And we have the phone number, which is also entity.phone number, and email is going to be entity.email as well. So then the last one, but not the least, address, is going to be entity.address. So that is why am I having this error? Okay, introduce the curly brace here. So that is our mapper, mapping from the domain entity to the domain user. So we'll do that also here again. We'll create another function. So all I'll just do is just copy this and edit that, so that I don't waste a lot of time on this. Okay, so why is this giving me error? Okay, let's go back to our entity and see if there is any misspelling. Oh, this is lowercase, that's why. Okay, so come back here. Oh, okay, so this is all right. Everything is fine now. So you should be very careful with your naming. Sometimes you can mix things up. So that is our mapper done now, and we can close that down, close this down, close this down, leave this. So in our domain layer, we actually have 3 different packages, and we're going to create that now. So first of all, we'll have the model package, yeah, and also we have the repository package, repository again, and also we have the use cases package where we're going to put our use cases. So, and that is use cases, right? So that's all done. So this, we'll move this to the model package because that's where they belong, and also move our mapper to the model package because that's also where they belong. So now we're going to create our user repository. In this our user repository, we're going to add some suspend functions that will also model our data. So now we'll come back here, here, So we'll call this, I'll call this, is going to be an interface, right? So this is going to be user repository, yeah, from our domain layer, right? So now in this user repository, we're going to have the suspend functions. So suspend function add user. This function is going to add our user, and the parameter is user from the domain user, which is still a long. And secondly, we'll have a new line. We'll have another suspend function, which is going to be delete user, and the parameter is still user from the domain user as well. So, and another suspend function, which is going to be get users sorted by. So this is a general function that we're going to call in to sort our users according to whatever the first name, second, last name, or by age, sorted by. So we'll just leave the name like that. So, and this is going to be of sort type, and it's going to be from our sort type class, which we have not created yet. Sort type class. So now, and this is going to be a list because we're sorting the list of our users, and it's still the domain from the domain model. So we're going to create this in a minute, don't worry about the error. So now the last suspend function here is going to be to get the user by ID, right? So this is going to be ID of type int, and is also the domain user from the domain user class, and this could be nullable. So now let us create the sort type. So I'll put the sort type class in the use cases package. So we just create an enum class that we're going to use to sort this in these categories. So it's an enum, and we'll call this sort type, right? So this sort type is just 3 of them, which is the first name, and the last name, then finally gender, right? So this is just our sort type. So if we come back here, we can import that. So we're trying to separate the concerns and put things in a different place so that to avoid too much coupling of our app in case of any changes, right? So after that, we're going to have set up our use cases. That's the thing remaining on this, the only class remaining in this our domain layer. So our use cases, we're going to set the class, right? So these are our use cases here, a general use case, because our app is just a small app. Then first of all, we call it I'll call it use case. We'll make this a file because there's going to be a lot of classes here. So call these use cases, right? So in the first class we're going to have in our use case is going to be the add user use case. Then in the body of this class, we're going to have a suspend operator. Suspend operator of form invoke, and the parameter is user of domain user, which is also a long. Oh, the noise have started again. Bear with me. I think they're almost done. Repository dot add user. Yeah. So, and we'll pass the user here. Okay. So that is our first use case done. Then I will copy this so I don't bore you with this. So it's saying type mismatch long, and we'll find a unit here. Okay, 1 minute. So in our repository, what data type is this? Oh, sorry, this is the error. There's no it doesn't inherit the long because this is delete user. That's why the error. So make sure you change that on your end. So now this one is going to be a little bit different because this is the one that is going to sort our users. So I will call this, instead of get user use cases, I will call this sort users. I'll call this sort users use case. So now our parameter is still correct. Then here the parameter we're invoking now is the sort, which is the sort type. So right here it's going to return a list of the elements that are being sorted, so not a long. So, and this is going to be from our domain user, the domain user type. Let's put this in a new line because it's getting longer. So this is just going to be repository dot sort get user sorted by, right? And now we'll pass the sort type here. Okay, so that is, this setup is done. Then the last one is get user by ID use case. Get user by ID use case. So now is the repository, yeah, correct. So this is correct as well. No, this is not correct. This is going to be ID of type int. ID of type int, right? So, and this is going to inherit from the class, the domain user model, which is nullable. So this is going to change to get user by ID, then we pass our ID here, and that is our use case done. So right now we're done with this. We don't need this anymore, as well as these. We'll call them up later. Then this is also sorted. So now this is technically our data model is completed at this point. Our domain layer is completed at this point. We have everything that we need and from here. So now that this is done, let us now implement our repository in the data layer. So let's quickly do that now. And first of all, we're going to introduce some parameters. And first of all, we're going to inject a constructor from room. So this inject, so let's import the class, right, from Java X. So this is constructor. So, and this constructor is going to have some parameters. So this is how we will now call our room, our DAO, that's our data access object. So that because of the abstraction, so we're going to call it a private valve because we don't want the UI to know about it, because the ViewModel is going to access the ViewModel is going to access this user repo implementation, and we don't want them to be able to access our DAO from there. So this is kind of the separation of concern and also maintaining security as well. So now we'll have a parameter user DAO from the class user DAO from our interface, sorry. So now that's the first parameter. Then again, our mapper, which we have used to map the different data models from our data layer and our domain layer. So now we'll call that here as well as a private class mapper, and this is going to be user mapper. So now this is done. This is our parameters for this repository implementation. So now we're going to override those suspend functions that we've created initially. So we'll use override. These methods that we've created, here in our repository in the domain layer, we're going to override them here and actually do the proper implementation in this user repo. So now we override this function. Is going to be a suspend function as well. Add user. So, and this is going to be user from our domain user. So now, and this is still long, and in the body we're going to return the user DAO dot insert user. You see how we're connecting these two layers together, and the mapper, which has mapped to call the mapper dot map to entity, then pass our user in here. So that's done. Why is it complaining about this? Remove override modifier. So let's just ignore this error for now and move further down. So here we're going to override and we'll call delete user. This is supposed to be user. Yeah. So that particular one is completed now. So let me just quickly copy this so that I'll go a little bit faster. Here, this is going to be get user sorted by. So this is where we're going to implement how we sort our users. This is not correct. This is supposed to be E. So and our parameter here is going to be the sort type, as we did on the other repository. Then it's going to pass the list, inherit from the list of type domain user. So then in the body we're going to use a when statement here. We'll say return when the sort type that we've defined above. So when the sort type is, so say sort type class dot first name. So we reach out to our user to get that query, which is user DAO dot get user sorted by first name, like this. Then also another sort type on his last name. Then we'll get user DAO dot sort by last name. Then finally the sort type by gender. Get user DAO and get user sorted by gender. So that's it. That's everything. Then dot, we'll map this out. So we'll set this to our mapper dot map from entity. then we'll just pass IT here. Okay, so that's done. It's still complaining, but let's move on. So let's paste the one we copied before. It's not pasting anymore, so let's just continue, please. Override function, override suspend function, that is. So, and this is going to get user by ID and ID. So return user DAO.get user by ID, and we'll pass ID, and this could be no dot let we'll map call mapper dot map from entity again. Then this is going to be IT. Why is it giving me this error? Set type mismatch. Okay, we didn't add this null label here. Alright, so this is our user repo implementation finished. So now let's go and include our DI so that it can provide us with all those dependencies that we require here. So I'm going to create a package called DI, which is going to be part of our root package, and this is DI. So here we're going to have the class, our DI class, which we'll call let's call this app module. So this app module is going to provide the dependencies, the dependency injections that we need. So, but first of all, we need to denote this, annotate this with at module and also at install in. So in this install in, we're going to assign singleton component class as well. So with that, we can now start providing the functions. First of all, we start with providing our database function. So we'll start with provide from Dagger and Dagger Hilt. Then this is a singleton. Then the function, we'll call this provide database, and in this we're going to call the application context, which is this one from Hilt, then to provide the context of our application. So assign context to context, then this is going to inherit from our user database. Yeah, selected the wrong one. Okay, so user database. Then in the body, we're going to create our database. So here, we're going to return room dot database builder, and we'll pass our context and the user database, which we have user database of class Java, right? Then we'll pass the name of our database, which I will call user underscore database. Yeah, okay. So then don't forget to call fallback to destructive migration in case we change our user database, so that we can recreate it, so that our app will not be stuck on the old database and serve us stale data. So that is why we use that function there. So that is our database is now provided. So the next thing, we need to provide our DAO, tell the dependency injection how to provide our DAO as well. So this is going to be provide. This is kind of redundant, but that's how you do it. So singleton function provide DAO, provide user DAO, I should say. So, and this is going to be user DAO. No, this is going to be from our user database. Yeah. So, and this is going to inherit from the DAO, user DAO. And in the body, we're going to return the user database dot user DAO, right? So that is our DAO provided for. So the next thing to provide is our repository. So I'll just copy this. Okay, we change this to inherit from user repo implementation instead. So the next one is to provide user mapper. This is going to, there is no parameter for this one. So, and this is going to be user mapper. And this is just user mapper. So here is going to be provide add user use case, so that Hilt will understand how to create some of these dependencies for us. Okay, it's kind of repetitive, but that's how you do it, guys. Use cases, right? So here is going to be, we're calling our repository here. So, and this is add user use case that we've created earlier. And this is going to return add user use case passing repository. Yeah. Okay. So why is this guy giving me error? Do we still have any other one down here? Okay, yeah, I get it. So now we've added, the add user has been implemented. The next one is provides delete user. So here we're going to have repository, user repository. So here is going to be delete user use case, right? Then down here is still delete user use case. Then we'll pass our repository parameter. So I still got some more to go. We still got our get user use case and the get user by ID use case. So let's paste this one more time for the last time. So the next one is provides get user use case. Okay, I think that was the last one for now. So that's our dependency injection done. So let's quickly give our app a run, and when this is done, let's see if this is going to disappear. If there is no error, that means we can continue to our presentation layer for our UI implementation. So our app is still having errors because why? It's simply because we did not inherit from the repository, which is where we're overriding these functions from, and it was an oversight on my side. I'm sorry for that. So that's why this has been complaining. So I will inherit from user repository. Okay, you see that error is gone now. So well, these ones, I think there is a name mismatch for these ones. Get users sorted by, let's see. Yeah, this is supposed to be lowercase, my bad. So that's the error was gone. Let's give it a quick run again and see if we have everything where they should be. Okay, our app have completed the build, so it's launching. So yeah, we don't have any more issues. So now we have implemented our data layer. We can't see any data yet because we're just working on the back end, right? So there is no data, but at least there is no error as well. So that means our implementations are very okay. So we don't have anything to worry. So right now we've implemented our local data layer. We've created all our data classes and implemented them, and the model, the repository, everything, the DI, all the things we need under the hood are now in place. So right now you see these have been created by our Hilt and Dagger. That's why they are now active. So then in our domain layer we've created everything we need, and now it's time to move to the presentation layer to be able to display and also collect the data that we need from our users. Okay, because I don't want to populate this with a dummy data and call it up straight away. I want us to put the data ourselves so that we'll see how it adds up. Okay, so now, so we can, if you want to see what we've done so far, we can do a quick inspection of our database. We'll go to tools on Windows and we add, where are you? App inspection. Okay, so now here we can inspect our app. So there is no databases created yet. So if our database has been created, it can show here. So let's continue to our presentation layer so that we'll be able to add some data to our database, because when we add the data, the database will be created. Let us go to our presentation layer, and in our component, this floating action button, we're going to create an app dialog so that once this floating action button is clicked, then we can now add a new user. So in the old program, when you go to the app widget, I've commented this out because when we go to the main screen, we're going to create a new floating action button that we're going to use to add the user. So, but first of all, let's add a reusable add user dialog that we can use across our app in case there is need for that later down the line. So here I'm going to call this is going to be a file, and it's going to be add user dialog. Okay, so as you can see, this floating action button, once we click it, it's going to bring up this. So let's create this structure right here that we're going to use to add our users. Okay, so put this down and close this up. So first of all, it's going to be composable. Yeah, and it's going to be fun. Add user dialog. So, and we're going to have some parameters which is going to be on dismiss, because if the user changes their mind, they don't want to sign up, they can dismiss the dialog and continue with the list they have already. Then, and this is going to be an empty function function, that's a unit. So, and the next one is on add user. Once they click add user, what do we want to happen? We want to perform some function, and this is going to inherit from the domain user model, and this could be, this is a unit. Yeah, so that's the parameters. Then down here we're going to create a state that we're going to use to retain the data that has been, like here, all this to collect the state. Like once the user types in something here, we need to retain the state. So this is in Compose is declarative, so the text field does not retain the information that is typed automatically, so it needs to do it manually. So because of that, we're going to create a state to remember the state once there is any state change, so that it can remember it and save it. So first, and this is first name. Yeah, this is first name by remember. On this jumping on a new line, so this is going to be mutable state of, and this is going to, we'll just pass an empty string here. So we need to import the setter, the sets, and the get value. So that's done. So once we do this, we can copy this as usual and paste it a couple of times. So that's everything, right? So let's create another variable for our date speaker, because as you can see from here, we can click on this and the date speaker will appear. So to show our date speaker when that icon is clicked, so this is show date speaker. By remember. I'm just trying to conserve space. Let me close this down. All right, so this is going to be mutable state of, and we'll set this to be false initially, because once, if the user have not clicked on the icon, we want it closed. Okay, so now let's set up our alert dialog. So let's set up our alert dialog here. So on dismiss, we call on dismiss that we've already set up above. So on dismiss, then on the after that, we need a title. We need a title, and the title we want to put, it's just, we'll add a test. So, and the test is just going to say add new user to help the user know what they need to do. Okay, so after that, I need to add some text. This test is going to the test that is going to contain this, our test fields down here. For the rest of this test field, would you do that, introduce that with a test as well. So, and we're going to use a lambda here. Then we'll create a column, because we want this to appear one on top of the other. So we'll use a column to set that up. But first of all, let's set some column parameters here, which is going to be, let's add a modifier, add some padding. So we'll set the padding to ADP, so that they will have enough breathing space. Okay, so we'll import that. Then dot is going to fill max width, fill the maximum width of each containing element. So now we need some vertical arrangement. So we want them to be arranged, arrangement. So arrangement, we want them to be spaced by, not bottom, sorry. So I want it to be spaced by how much, by 8 dp, so that we can have all these nice gap you're seeing in between them, 8 dp, so that they won't be squashed together. Okay, so after that, now that we've completed that bit, let's now add our outline text fields. Outline text fields. So first of all, we'll start from the first one, which is the value we want here is the first name. So on value change, what is going to happen? So just assign first name to equal to IT. So what next? We need this enclosed in a lambda, right? So, and again, we need a label. That's the label. What's the label here? And it should be pushed up here when it's highlighted. So the label is going to be, for this one, the label is going to be, we use a lambda test. We can put all these tests in a string resources, but for demonstration purposes, let's continue. This is not an app that we're going to publish, but if you're going to publish this, you're supposed to put this for text readers. Okay, that's the standard way of doing it, but let's just hard code them here for now so that we can move quickly. Then modifier, let's add some modifier for the text, and want to fill max width. Okay, so that's this outline text field. So what I'm going to do, not to bore you with this, I'm going to copy and paste some of them, but the one for the DOB, I'm going to show you how we'll do that. Okay, so for the date of birth, I'll show you how we do that so that we can actually get the right date of birth. So this value is going to be DOB dot, this is null level, surrounded with null level, so let, right? So here we're going to call the simple date format library from Java, and we're going to set how we want to format our library. So, and it's going to be the month comes first /dd /YYYY, which is the year. So, and after that, we're going to call local.get default, and at the end dot format. So then we'll pass our date, and we'll set that to IT. Okay, so you need to import date from Java util. Yeah, so after that, we're going to put the string marker here using Elvis expression. So empty string. So you see that. So but on value change, we're going to leave that empty for now. Then the text is going to be date of birth. So that's true. So I want it to be read only, so they can't edit it once they have selected it from the picker. Okay. we'll set that to true. So after that, we can use trailing icon to set the calendar icon there. We use a lambda. So here we use icon button because we want, that's the button they will click to take them to that. So here it's going to be show date picker. That's the variable we created above, and we'll set that to true once it's clicked. So once they click the icon, then it will show them the date picker. So down in the body, we use icon. You can use this one, but I'll still clear this up. So this is going to be icons dot default dot date range. That is the date range. Yeah, that's the calendar icon there. So now we assign a string here, which is peak date for screen readers. Okay, so that is the dates outline text field implemented. We are still going to work on the dialog in a break very soon. Okay, so let's just set up the outline text field, then we can set up the dialog for the date picker. Okay, so like I said, I'm not going to bore you with all these things. I'm going to edit the other ones because there is no special implementation for those ones. Okay, so the next is now to implement our confirm button. So that's want like you can see, this add button here is grayed out, it's disabled. So we want to set a condition whereby the user have to include at least, fill up like at least these first three boxes, which is our outline text field, before this can come active. Like you see, if I type on the first name, it doesn't come on. Type on the last name, it doesn't come on. But once I pick a date of birth, it comes on. So now this means you've set a condition depending on how the features you want to implement in your app and the condition, the requirements. So if you want all of them to be filled up, you can actually set that condition. But for this demonstration, we're going to just require them to fill the first three before they can actually continue. So down here, we're going to use a button for that. So on click, this is what we want to happen. So we'll use an if condition. Let's say if first name dot is not blank and last name dot is not blank and DOB is not null. So we'll check, we'll add the user. So on add user, so we'll call our domain user and get all the parameters for our domain user. So first name should be the first name, the data that your user have entered. So we're assigning this to our domain user so that it can save to our database from here. So last name DOB, and we're going to surround this with null as well, null checks, and the gender, pass whatever gender the user have added, then the phone number, and email address, whatever email address they've added. Lastly, we have the address and whatever address they've added, right? So once all these have been confirmed, what happens? So we say we call enabled to make sure they have entered the first name that is not blank and last name and also making sure that the date of birth is not null as well. So once all these checks has been satisfied, we should now enable that button add. So here we can use a test to add that. So so once they click that add and they have filled these 3 buttons, this ad should come active. So from there now we can now call the function that will add that to our database. Okay, so but what if they change their mind? This cancel button, let us implement that as well. So we add that here outside the confirm. So dismiss button, we use a lambda, so we use a test button for that. So test button on click, we should call on dismiss once the test button is called. So just let's add another text to tell the user what the button is for, and that will be cancelled, right? So with that, this layout has now been completed. So now the date picker dialog, let's implement that so that once the date picker dialog is clicked, then it should come on. Okay, so we do that here with an if statement. So say if show date picker, that's when it's now true, we should set a state to capture the state of the date picker to know if it's false or true. So date picker state equal to remember date picker state. Remember. Okay, so remember date picker state. So we should initialize the initial selected date in milliseconds. So we call DOB with Elvis operator, and we'll call the system from Java dot current time milliseconds to capture the actual time, actual dates that have been selected. We need to import, okay, we need to opt in for experimental API for this to work. Okay, so that's now done. So now after that, let's call our date picker dialog. I think this is the longest compose that we're doing on this demonstration, so we're almost there. Okay, I'll set this in a new line, so I can just close this down. We don't need this anymore. So then set this on new lines for clarity. So now once on dismiss request, what do we want to happen? We want to set, once the user clicks on cancel, then we should close the date picker. So we'll set this to false. Then on confirmation, so we use a text button to confirm. So on click, we want to do something. We want to call DOB and assign whatever dates they have selected. So we do that by saying calling date picker state, then selected date in milliseconds. Okay. Then also, if the date picker is open, it's actually open when they selected the date, so we should also close the date picker after that. Okay. So with that done, the next thing, what button do we use? We just need to the text to say okay. That means they have selected whatever they want. So let's call that okay. So first of all, let's then on dismiss. No, here. So when you click on dismiss button, what should we do? We should also close it down. So we use the text button. So on click, we should also close the date picker. Set that to false. No, equal to false. Alright, so now that we've done that, what does the test say to the user? It means when you click on the cancel, so test, and this is cancel. So now we need to set the date picker, which is here. We'll say the date picker state, will apply the date picker state. So whatever they have chosen at that point in time should be recorded as the date of birth of the user. Okay, so I think this is the end of alert dialog. It's a very long one, guys. So now the next thing we need to do is to start setting up our main screen, which is this. Let's close this down. So we'll set up our main screen. This is already set. We need to set up, I need to change this. This is not what it used to be in this app, and also edit some of these, because in our old app this is not what it will be showing in the app we're working on now. Sorry. So let's go to our main screen. So this is our main screen here. I want to extract this because this is here with the splash screen, which I don't want to be. So let me create another package here and call it the user package. So in this user package, I want to extract our meditation main to this user package within our screens, our presentation layer. So I think I will put it in the presentation layer entirely so that it will be separated from the other screens, because some of them we won't be using. Another one we're going to extract from here is the user details, because we want to separate it from the other screens that we're not working with at this point in time. So I will refactor that. Okay, so now can close this up and have a lean interface. So now here we'll have this main screen, which is our main screen, but we will need do some modification from our old app actually. So that modification is that initially the floating action button was implemented in our app widgets, which is in the components here, but now I want to do that in the main screen because I don't want to be passing parameters around. So I just want it to be in one place. Okay, in this package now we need a view model and a state and also an event class that we're going to use to monitor the events of the user. So let's create those ones. Let's first of all create the user state. So the user state class is going to be a data class that we'll call user state. So now we're going to have a variable here called users, and that is going to be supplying us the list of our users, and this is going to be from the domain, right? And let's initialize this to an empty list for now. So after that, we'll have another variable which is loading, to know when it's loading, so that we don't keep the user, so that the user knows that something is loading behind the scenes. So let's set this to false. Then also error, if there is any error from our database, maybe we couldn't reach our database, then it's also notify the user. Okay, so this is our state set. The next one we're going to create now is the user event, so that we can use that in our view model as well. So the next one is going to be a sealed class. So, and this is going to, I'll call this user event, and it's going to be a sealed class. So now we're going to have a data class here called delete user. Okay, so data class delete user will have variable of user inherited from domain user, and is going to call the user event, inherit the user event class. Why is it not seeing it? Oh, sorry, I made a mistake here. So, oh, typo error, my bad. So that's fine now. Then the next one is another data class, and it's going to be add user, and you have a variable user from our domain user, and it's going to inherit from the user event as well. So the last one, and this is going to be called sort user, and this is going to be var user. No, this is going to be from our sort type, and this will inherit from user event as well. Okay, so that is our event class and our user state completed. So the next thing we're going to do is to quickly set up our view model, so that once we go to our main activity, the main screen, which is our first screen, we'll be able to call our view model. So let's create our view model class. So our view model here is going to pass the data from the repository down to our UI. Is going to be a class, and we'll call it user view model, right? So user view model, we're going to annotate this with Hilt view model because we're using Hilt in this demonstration. So now we need to inject our constructor and here we're going to call our private var get user use case. Okay, get user by ID use case. Then here private var delete user use case. We're going to call our use cases here. The last one, which is private var add user use case. Okay, and this is going to inherit from our ViewModel class. Okay, so down here we're going to capture our state. So private var state equal to mutable state flow, and now we'll pass our user state that we just created here. So now we'll call our public state that we're going to use in our UI state, and it's going to be state flow of type user state, and pass this to our private state dot our state flow. Right, so with that we can capture our states. So then again we'll create another event flow, a private event flow, private var underscore event flow equal to mutable state, mutable shared flow of type UI event. I haven't created this UI event yet. So we're going to create our UI event. Let's create that. So our UI event is going to have is a class, and it's going to have its own data class, which we'll use to show snack bar, so that we can show the user what they have done. Maybe they have added a new user, or they have deleted a user, to tell them that an action has been performed. So we'll call message and it's going to be a string inheriting from UI event. Okay, so and this is supposed to be a sealed class. So that error is gone. So but we can actually copy this, cut this out, and put it in our user event. You can add it here as well. So I think I need to refactor this because it's the way I spelled the user event is not right. So I can refactor this. Yeah. So that's, oh, I made a mistake here. This is show snack bar. All right. So let's go back to our user view model that's sorted. Okay. So now we proceed further. We're going to create our functions. We're going to create another variable just to on it initially when we start adding user, we want every user to be sorted according to their first name. So let's create a variable here called current sort type equal to sort type dot first name. Right, so now after that let's call init block here, load users. I was going to be loading the users to our lazy column. So we'll create that function, load users. We'll create it there and we'll implement that later. So but first of all, let's create the function for our on event. First, on event, so it's going to have event and user event. So here we're going to use when to say when event is user event dot delete user. So we want to delete user. And how do we delete this user? So we say we'll use a ViewModel scope to launch that on a new thread dot launch, ViewModel scope dot launch, and we'll use a try in case anything happens, you couldn't execute the command. So we'll call delete user use case, passing event dot that particular user that have been selected. Then after that, we should reload our users. Okay, so this should be users, not user. So we should reload the remaining user that are left. So then we'll call our event flow, which is the state dot emit. So we should emit the snack bar once that user is successfully deleted. So this does show snack bar, and this is going to be, let's say, user deleted. Right, so the user is deleted. Then if there is any error, we should catch that error, and this is going to be E exception. Then event flow should give us some hint of what happened if we have that information. So dot emit UI event dot show snack bar. So we say, let's say couldn't delete user. So if we couldn't delete the user, let's pass some message to tell us what really happened, why the user couldn't be deleted. So it's eu.message. Right, so this is if the event is selected and it was delete user event that was selected by the user. So this is the action we want it to perform. So then after that, we'll set another is what if the user says add user. So you say user event dot add user, and then how do we achieve that? We say ViewModel scope. Here we're using coroutine to make sure that there is no race conditions when our app and that makes our app to lag or crash. So we use try. You say add user use case, then we pass event dot user, so the new user that is being added. So once the user has been successfully added, we should load and update our list. So then also give the user a little message to tell them that the user have been added. So in case that fails as well, we should also catch the error. So we are going to emit event flow.emit, and we'll call UI event dot show snack bar. Should also tell them that we couldn't add the user. Okay, and give us a little hint of what went wrong. That's it. Then the next one is user event dot sort user. So what do we want to do? Select the sort type that has been selected by the user. So use current sort type equal to event dot sort type. Then also load the users, the list of the users, so arranged in that selected sort type. So now it's time to implement our load users. How do we want to load these users to our UI? So let's continue with that in another view model scope. So now we're going to call the state, the private state dot value, whatever value is equal to, pass it to our public state dot value dot copy. So here we're going to check the state. Is it loading? The loading is true. That's it's going to take a couple of milliseconds to load the users. So here we'll set user equal to user. So first of all, we'll set the user to empty list. So now let's try using try catch. Let's call the get user use case. So var users equal to get users use case. Okay, I see the error here. Why we're getting this error? Because we want to load the users, the sorted users, like we've called here. And in our, where are you? In our use case here, I changed the name to sort users use case. So, but that's wrong because we're using that to get it. So there is ambiguity in the naming. So I'll change this to get users right here. And that is why it has not been called, because we don't even include it in our DI, in our app module here. So now we need to add that to our app module so that we'll be able to find that. So down here, let's quickly add that to say add provide, then add singleton. It's still not showing up. I think I've get users use case. It's double T. Okay, let's go back. Meanwhile, this is uppercase. This is a class. Okay. So here you can find that now. Yeah. So with that, we can return our get users use case and pass our repository here. So with that, that is what we're supposed to call here as the parameter, not get user by ID. This is get users. Yeah. So let's change this to get users use case. Yeah. So now we should be good to go down here. So now we're going to call the get users use case here. Get users use case. Yes, that's up now. So the current type of the sort type that we have selected, which is first name, and now we'll call the state, the private state dot value equal to our public state dot value dot copy. So here we'll call users and we'll pass user. Okay, we'll call user, then we'll pass users, then we'll check if it's loading is false, right? So after that, we catch any error as usual. Then let's give them a little message as well. So we'll pass our state dot value and we'll assign that to our public state dot value dot copy. So we'll set his loading to false as well, and also we'll send the error message. So we'll send whatever error message to tell us what really went down. So now event flow.emit, and that is UI event the show snack bar, and we'll set some strings to tell them that there was an error loading users. Okay, so that's done. Now this is our view model done. So the next thing is just to call this in our UI SAP. Once we achieve that, then we'll be able to add users and also view the users that we've added. So I need to clean this up a bit, close some of these, close. I need this, close, then close. So let's now quickly implement our main screen so that we'll be able to add users and also see the users that we've added. Let's call our view model. Let's put all this in a new line. So right here we'll call our view model, which is our user view model, and let's initialize it with the Hilt view model so that we don't have to be passing it around our navigation graph. So now we've added that, we need some variables. I want to make them global, so call state to collect our view model state by ViewModel.state.collector_state. Okay, so we need to import the set and get value. Okay, so after that we need another variable called the snack bar host for our snack bar. So our snack bar host state equal to, remember, so this is going to be snack bar host states like this. Okay, so it's complaining for typo error, we'll just ignore that. So to collect our event, we're going to use launched effect for this, to show our snack bar. So launched effect, and our key will set that to true, right? Then after that, the view model, call the view model dot event flow. So why can't we reach our event flow from here? So what did I call this? Let's check our view model and see what we called it there, because we didn't set the public event flow here. My bad. So here we set our event flow. So right here in our main screen, I don't know why I keep calling it main activity. So here in our main screen, we're going to call event flow.collect. We're going to use a lambda for this, and let's put a parameter here and I'll leave it empty. Right here we'll say when event is user view model.UI event. I moved this, is no longer in user view model, so this is on our user event .UI event. Where did I put this again? We should be able to call this directly. So UI event .show snack bar. Yeah. So and we'll use a scope to launch it. We need to create a scope, a variable here called scope, and this scope is going to remember coroutine scope. Here we can import launch, and our snack bar host state, dot show snack bar, and here we're going to pass a message which is our event dot message. That's our launch effect completed. Then down here we need to add a variable to collect the state of our add user dialog. So down here we'll create another variable called show add user dialog. We need to import the set value. So that's now, let's set the condition for showing our dialog here in our the main body of our scaffold. But before we do that, let's add our floating action button down here. So our floating action button we'll call floating action button. So on click we want to show the add user dialog, and we want to set that to true. Okay, so then after that we need a button for that. Let's set our button for the floating action button. So we're using an icon, and set this on a new line. So I want to take this out, and I'll call icon icons dot default dot add. Yeah, so what's the content description is just add user. Okay, so then the bottom bar we'll leave it as it is. So down here we're going to set our main content in here. So we'll have to check the state of our content, so which is if the state dot is loading is true, then we add a box, and let's set the box parameter here. So modifier equal to modifier dot fill max size. I want you to fill the max size of the screen. Then set content alignment, set alignment to center. We need to set a circular progress indicator in the box. So after that, what else happens? In case nothing, so else we should display a lazy column, and in this lazy column we'll set our items. We'll set the items. So on the items is going to be collecting the state dot users. So here this user is from our view model. So is it users or user? Let's call this users. Go to our view model. Okay, let's see. Let's import the extension. Yeah. So down here we're going to set these two. Here we're going to have a user card that we're going to display the details, short detail for our user. So here say user equal to user, and also some parameters on delete. and that's going to be a lambda. Here we're going to set the navigation where we want to take the user to once they have once they click on delete, what happens next. So after that, then another parameter we'll have here is on click, which is going to be a lambda as well. So let's create the user card, the composable user card. So now that we've created that, let's finish up this composable before we come back to the user card, then finish that up. So here we're going to send if show user dialog is true. We want to call the add user dialog that we created initially in our app widget here, then set up the parameters as well. So here on dismiss, we want to set the show user dialog to false. Then this should go. After that, on add user, we want to set that to our ViewModel dot on event. So user event dot add user. And we'll pass our user here. And after that, we should close our show user dialog once the user is added as well. Okay, our composable here is done. So let's create our user card that will display the added user, a little description of the added user. Then when we go to the details screen, we can see the full user details. So first of all, here we need to import the domain user again for the user, then on delete. Okay, these ones are fine. So we're going to use a card to show the little detail that we want to show. So here we're going to use modifier to set the size of the card. So modifier dot want it to fill the maximum width, and also the padding, we want to set the padding to 8.dp, and also want to make it clickable. So dot clickable, we'll set that to on click, which we'll set as our parameter above, right? So after that, we're going to set some card elevation so that it will stand out a little bit. Elevation, we call card defaults dot elevated card elevation. So, and I want to set that to 4dp. Okay, so after that, now we're going to use a row first of all, because we want to so we're going to use a row to separate this text from this icon. Okay, so now we'll call row. So let's set our row properties here, and modifier, set that to modifier as well. Dot, let's set a padding of 16dp. Then let's set some vertical alignment, then some horizontal arrangement. Then after the row, then now we can add the text, the column, to, because as you can see from here, we have the full name, then the email address. So we need to set the both text in rows, okay, in columns, sorry, I mean. So column, and we'll set a modifier for that to just add a weight to that column. So here we'll call modifier dot weight. Oh, I'll do that. So we'll set this to 1F. So now after that we have added, then now we can now add the two tests. So we use the test, and in our test, the string, we're going to use call user dot first name, right, and also the last name. So that's what we want to display in the first test. Then let's add some style to that test, and after that let's just copy this test and paste it, then edit that so that we can move faster. So down here we only need one of these items, so it's users.email. Okay, so now this is going to be body medium, not title, because I want it to look a little bit different from the first one. Then after that, let's gray it out so that the color will also, because this is a sub test. So dot color scheme dot on surface dot copy. So this is alpha. Let's set this to alpha so that you gray out a bit like this. You see, this one is gray while this is black. Okay, to show the difference, that's the subtest. So after that, we have our icon button after this column, which is part of the row. So icon button, on click, what happens? We'll pass on delete, which we've called it earlier. So now we are going to set our icon dot default dot delete. Right, so let's set this to, the test should be delete. So let's set this to color red so that the user will know that this is a dangerous action to perform. Okay, let's import color. That is our main page all set up now. I think we should be able to add a user right now. Can we test that out and see if we can do that yet? I guess we should be able to do that. Let's go. We're having a lot of errors here. Okay, let's start. Let's start debugging. Public class, I think it's something to do with our dependency injection. Let's see. It said dagger missing binding cannot provide annotated method. I think I missed one of these provides. Where? How? Let's start with our repository first and see where we got it wrong, and I will come back. So guys, I've spotted the error here. We are supposed to be calling the user repository, not the user repo implementation right here. So that is why we are getting that error. So now if we correct this, we're going to, that error will go away. So let's see. So you see our app has been installed successfully. So yeah, so you see once we click on this now, our dialog button is up. So, and as well, I guess by now our database is now has been created. So as you can see, we now have our database here, but we don't have anything yet inside our database because we've not created anything. So if we query it, if we query our database, let's say select all from users. Oh, sorry. So it's not, when we run this, there's no data. So if we select this live update now, and let's try to add a user and see if we can get something. So let's say we have happy Karen. So we have happy Karen. And Karen was born in 2000. Karen was born in July 2000. So now Karen is female, and Karen's phone number is +33333. I don't know which country has that number. So Karen at mail.com. Then Karen lives in Kentucky. Okay, so add user. You see, Karen has been successfully added to our list here. So when we go to inspect our database now, we should be able to find Karen. Let's refresh. Okay, let's run this again and see what's happening here. Okay, yeah, it's there. I couldn't see it because this is not scrollable, that's why. So you see, happy Karen has the ID of 1. So this is the normal ID is 1, but the auto-generated ID from room is also 1. So you see, this is Karen's date of birth. This is how Karen's date of birth is showing here. But by the time we check that out on our details page, we're going to convert this timestamp, these milliseconds of times, in the normal format that you can visualize on our data page. Okay, so everything is working fine. So our database is live and is receiving data gracefully. So right now we're done with this guy. So now we can save data effectively on our database, right? So you see, we're still going to edit some of these, and also we're going to tweak our navigation a little bit by the time we implement the details page. So that's the next thing we're going to get. I hope you're excited and you are learning a lot. I know we've made a lot of mistakes in this video, but that's how we learn. Okay, sometimes typos, implementation errors and all that. So but if you can get past that, you will still learn something, right? So now the next thing to implement is our details page, right, which is the next thing. Okay, so we'll grab a cup of coffee or water, whatever, stroll for 5 minutes, then come back. Let's continue. Okay, welcome back, guys. Let's finish up our app. And to finish up our app, let's go to our presentation layer here. I want to change this to, let me refactor this, give it the right name. So user details. I think that's a better name. So to show that this is taking us to the user details page. So now we'll have user details. So in this our profile screen, let's quickly create our user details view model that is going to hold our state. So, and this is going to be a class we'll call our user detail view model, or details view model, I think. Okay, so that's now created. So we should also not forget to annotate with Hilt view model. Okay, so and also here we're going to inject our constructors always. And we're going to pass the get user by ID use case as a private variable here. Get user by ID use case. Yeah, that's the one. So now, and we're going to inherit from ViewModel class. Let's not forget that as well. Then I think that's set up. So now we're going to collect our state. So underscore state is equal to mutable state flow and we're going to pass our user details view model here. No, our user details state, we have not created that function down here, so it's going to be a data class. Let's create that and attend to that later. So we'll create that here. So let's quickly create that before we continue, because we're going to need that. So now our state here is going to have some parameters, so here var user is equal to domain, or domain user of, set it to null, and var is loading boolean, and this boolean will set it to false initially. Then also for error capturing, and that error is the string, and we'll set that to null. Okay, right. So now let's with our public state. Okay, so now let's create a function that is going to load our user details. So that function is going to be load user detail. Load user details, and is going to have a parameter of user ID of type int. Right. So in this function, we're going to start that on another thread, which is using a model view scope.launch, and down here we're going to call our private state.value, as we've done it in the past, state.value .copy, and also so is loading, let's set is loading to true. Okay, because user by ID use case, then we'll pass our user ID. Then after that, let's get the value of this user. So underscore state dot value equals to state dot value dot copy. So what is user equal to user. So is loading, we'll set that to false. Then also let's catch any error that might occur, and after that we'll set the state dot value equal to state dot value dot copy, and we'll set its loading to false again. And then error, we'll set that to e.message. Right? So that is our user details view model done. So let's go to our profile screen, update that so that we can see the user's detail. So firstly, we have our nav controller here. Let's set this, but we're going to be tracking the user by the ID which they have. So we're going to set another parameter here called user ID of type int, right? Then as well, we're going to call our view model user details view model, and we'll set that to Hilt view model. So that's set up. So now our top up bar is still here. We have our title. We should leave the title as profile. It's still the same thing. So our title is here. I think we can set an icon. Set icons dot arrow back. Arrow back is deprecated. Wow. We'll still use it regardless. Okay. So now we'll set that up. Then here in our surface, we used to have test here, this test. So we're going to take that out and put display our details. So here we're going to use a column, and let's set some column parameters as well, how we want our items to be displayed in this column. Within that, we're going to use launched effect to load past our view model. So launched effect, and we'll set our key to the user ID. So here in the body, we're going to call our view model dot load user details, then we'll pass our user ID. Okay. So with that, we can get the state of our user ID. So after that, we're going to have set a state by view model dot state, so that we'll collect the state, collect the state of our view model and the data passed. So we need to import this to get value here. After that, now we'll use if statement to check if it's loading some data. So if state dot is loading is true, then we'll use a box to tell the user that something is happening, they should wait. Okay, so let's import box, then set some box parameters as usual. After that, let's set some circular progress indicator here to show the user that something is being loaded. But necessary, this is not really necessary because we're loading from a local database. But in case anything happens, then we should be able to inform the user so that they will know that something is coming up. So after that, then we'll say if else. That's if the data was loaded immediately. So let's just display our data immediately without wasting time. Let user. So now we say we're going to use let's use a column, because in this state, once this user is loaded, we want to load that funny picture of the professor. So that picture, we are going to set that in a column with the other part of the details under it. So here we're going to use a column, and we're going to set some column parameter, which is, so after that, let's use a surface to create that circular container that is going to house that picture. So now we'll use surface. So our surface is going to have some parameters. So first of all, our modifier as usual, dot padding. I want to add a 0 padding to this because I don't want any gap between the outline and the picture. So dot size, I want it to just be 200 dp. Then I want it to have a circular shape, so we'll use shape and call circular shape, or circle shape it's called, yeah. So after that, I want to add some border. So on that border, we'll use a border stroke. So with the border stroke, we'll add some width, and the width is going to be just 2 dp, nothing bogus. Then the color, we want the color to be light gray. Color dot light gray. Then the inside of the circle, I want it to be white. So color dot white. So now let's close this down. This kind of, yeah. So now after that, we need to add the image. So that image has been, it was a random image I downloaded from the internet. Let me get it again so that we'll use it here. Yeah, that's the image. So I'll copy this image and I'll close this down. Then go to my drawable folder and paste this image here. Yeah. So I'll call it professor. Okay, so we'll have our professor image. Now let's add our professor image here in the body of the surface that we've created. So we'll use image to do that. So image, we'll call image. Let's separate this on new lines. So we call painter resources. That's how we can find that particular image. So r dot drawable, we need to import r. It's not there yet. I don't know why it wastes time before it comes on. It's not there. Let's see if we can get that from more option. It's loading. It's now here. So let's find professor. Yeah. So we've got our image. Select that. Yeah. So now let's just add the this to be null because the image doesn't mean anything. So now this is null. So now after that, the image, let's create the card that is going to display the details of the selected user. Okay, so down here we'll create a card. So in that card, we're going to have some card properties as well. Let's set that up. I want to set a color, some color, hex code color that I got from the internet as well. So colors, card defaults. So to make it, to help it stand out, you can choose your own color here to make it better. And this is just for demonstration purposes, guys. So I know it could be done better, but for now we need to continue. 9800, I guess. So okay, yeah, it looks like it's that golden yellow. Yeah, so after that, what else? We add elevation. Card defaults dot elevated card elevation. So we'll leave that as it is. So after that, we're going to add a column to layer out the text one by one on top of the other. So down here we'll call a column. So let's add some padding to that column to give it some nice space. Let's add the text that we're going to use to collect the names and the items. So here we're going to have a test, and it's going to be, let's say, name, see user dot first name, and again user dot last name. So because we want their full name to be displayed first, then after that we're going to add some style. So then after this, to add some demarcation so that the text won't be squashed together, let's add some horizontal divider here, horizontal divider, and let's add some modifier as well to that. So modifier dot, so we'll need to add some padding. Let's add some top and bottom padding to give it a nice breathing gap. So bottom padding, set that to 4 as well. Okay, so after that, we want it to fill the maximum width it's occupying. So dot fill max width. Yeah, so now each text is going to be separated from the other with this by a line, a horizontal line. So let's copy this and duplicate this for all the items that we're going to be needing here. So that I don't bore you with that, let me edit this quickly so that we can move on. This one is going to be just by itself. Okay, so this is our details screen setup all done. Now we have a little roadblock. We need to rearrange our nav controller, and we need to set it up on the main screen. I think I've closed that down. Okay, so now if you look at here in our card, we have not implemented, where are you? Okay, on delete and on click on our card have not been implemented. So but before we will be able to achieve that, we need to go back to our nav controller and edit that a bit. Okay, so but we can implement the on delete right away. The ViewModel dot on event. So user event user event dot delete user, then we'll pass our user. So with this we can just delete our user and that will work. But now let's go to our navigation and rethink our navigation. So in our navigation screen we need to rethink our navigation, and also in our app widgets where we implemented our bottom navigation, we have some corrections to make now, because now for we to pass the data from one screen to another, we need to pass the route, to find the right route and pass the data. But the way we have implemented, where is our navigation, the way we have implemented, you see it's complaining now. The profile screen doesn't have this user ID that we added in the beginning as parameter. It doesn't have this user ID, and if we pass the user ID, it's going to request for a variable which we don't have yet. So for we to do that, we go to our navigation and set up that variable. So now our profile screen composable, we need to remodel it, which is going to be that, because look, if we pass the user ID here is an int, so what are we going to pass? Nothing. We don't have anything to pass yet. So for we to do that, what we need to do is that this is not going to just call this simply now, because we have some data to pass. What we're going to do here is that we're going to set a route, and our route is going to be a string, and we're going to we'll call meditation screen dot profile screen dot name. So now we're going to pass the user ID as an extension, like in our web address, so to find that particular route here. But now we have to set up the argument. You can't pass it directly like this and it will work. So now we have to set argument, so which is the list of arguments. So now we'll call nav argument. So nav argument, we're going to pass now our user ID as a string to our nav argument. We'll use a lambda to determine the type. So the type is equal to nav type dot int type, because this is int. Our user ID is of type integer. So now here we are going to set a backstack entry. So let's call that here and backstack entry. So this backstack entry here is going to, now we're going to create a variable here called user ID equal to the backstack entry up there dot argument. So we'll set this to nullable dot get int, right, which is our data type, and we'll pass that int as our user ID string. Okay, so now we have our user ID. So now we say, using Elvis operator, we'll ask it to return a composable. So with this now, we can now come down here and pass user ID, which is our variable. Okay, so with that, we can successfully pass our data through those two composable, the main screen and the profile screen. Now, so the next thing, then when we go back to our main screen, on click, when the user clicks on select, when the user selects a particular user item, what do we want to happen? Say nav controller dot navigate. Now we pass it as a string, which is meditation screen. So we call meditation screen. No, meditation screen, where are you? Down here, okay? Dot profile screen dot name. See, it's a little bit different from the way we used to navigate to our screen, because now we are dealing with data. So user ID dot ID, right? So we need to close this in curly braces. Yes. So with this now, we can safely pass our data from one screen to another. So in our app widgets, right here, where we called our profile screen, we also need to pass the same route, because this route is no longer, you can't find this route anymore. First of all, we do this, then call our meditation screen dot profile screen dot name. Then we pass our user ID. That should be fine. Okay, so that's how we find our screen now. Okay, so I guess if we run this now, we should be able to navigate safely to our user details screen. Let's check that out. Okay, so let's check. Okay, as you can see, we can now navigate to our details screen safely. As you can see, just like the other one. So if we go back, this button is not working yet. But if we go back from here, I didn't set the navigation for that. So if we go back from here, you see, but if we click on this, our app will crash. The app has crashed. That's why, because this navigation setup cannot select a particular user, because we've set our navigation in such a way that our route in such a way that you can only move to another navigation when you have a user. So that is why the app crashed. So if for apps, there is no way in a production app, we are not going to tie that to our bottom navigation like that, because this could be a section of one app. So it is not a good practice to tie it to the bottom navigation just that way to select one particular user. So but when you do it like this, it's going to work. But if you select it, it doesn't know which user you want to see the details, so it's going to crash. So that's something you can now look further and know how you can do it better on your own and make the app look more enticing. So the next thing, let's check out our delete action and see if it's working. So we can delete user as well. So the next thing now is also to edit this so that we can use this as our sort buttons. Let's do that quickly and wrap this video up. Okay, right. Let's go. So the next thing we need to do here, first of all, we need to call our ViewModel here in this app widget, which is what I didn't want to do initially, but let's just do it for demonstration purposes. Let's just add our ViewModel here. So we'll call our ViewModel, let's say user ViewModel, so that we know the particular ViewModel we are targeting here. ViewModel, and it is user ViewModel. So let's set that to Hilt ViewModel like this. So once we've done that, the next thing we could do is just to go down to our drop down menus and edit them. So initially we had profile, which we have created somewhere else. So we can turn this to sort by first name. And this could be sort by last name. And this could be sort by gender. Okay, so now on click, we want to call the event, the sort event that we've set up initially in our repository and our ViewModel. So here we use our ViewModel dot on event. See, we can access it because we've called the ViewModel up there. So user event dot sort user. Then in our user event, so we're going to sort the user, and so we'll call the sort type dot first name. Okay, see, easy peasy, right? So we'll just copy that to make our work easier and faster, and we'll just paste that here, and we'll paste that here. Okay, so now this is going to be dot last name, and this is going to be dot gender. So with that said, our app is done. Why this error? Oh, okay, copied something else. All right, so I think the error is gone. So now let's rerun our app and see. So now let's drop down sort by name, sort by last name, sort by gender. So let's add a couple of users and see if that's working. So first of all, let's add Joe House. Okay, then Joe, let's say Joe was born October last year, and Joe is a male. And Joe's phone number is +1555555. Okay, and the email is joe@mail.com. Then house address, Joe lives in Washington. So now we'll add Joe. Let's bring back happy Karen again. When Karen is happy, everybody likes a happy Karen, huh? So Karen was born in 1979 on the 25th of April. So Karen is a female. And it's Karen@mail.com, right? And Karen is from Illinois. So we'll add Karen, happy Karen is back. Then let's add one person, Tipsy, the crazy one among the group. Tipsy is Jaden is Tipsy. So Jaden was born in 2000, the Gen Zs. Okay, right, so he was born on the 18th of April, and he's a male, and his phone number is +3333, yeah. And he's Jaden@mail.com. Okay, and Jaden lives in Chicago. Okay, so you add now HJABCD. So you see, our initial setup is that it should be sorted alphabetically. So H comes before J, and J, GHIJK, so before T. So it's sorted according to the first name originally. So let's sort it according to last name. You see, now J comes before K and M. So our sorting query is working. So now let's sort by gender, and happy Karen comes first because she's female. Ladies first, you know. So that's everything done. The sorting is working, the delete is working, the transition from one page to another is working. So you can add this pop back tag for this navigation, so that once we click it, it takes us back. So that's your assignment, guys. I want you to do something to move on from where I stopped. So I guess you learned something. This is quite a wrap. It's been long. I thought this would take a short time, but it took longer than I expected, but that's fine. We're able to achieve something, and I encourage you to keep learning and keep practicing. And if you have any suggestion, maybe something else you want me to implement in Android, you can just throw it in the comment section, and also subscribe if you have not, and also tell me what you think in the comment section. I really want to hear from you. And until I see you again, happy coding and have a good life. Cheers.